Why, hello, friends. Say, perhaps against what remains of my better judgment, I'm going to share this piece with you today. Um, well, about 200 years ago now, a gentleman named Samuel Woodworth composed a poem which would become very much beloved, and he called it The Old Oaken Bucket. Let's see, I believe it began, "How dear to this heart are the scenes of my childhood, when fond recollection presents them to view. The orchard, the meadow, the deep, tangled wildwood, and all the loved spots which my infancy knew." And he goes on to describe the object of his affection, which is the old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket that hung in the well. Now, somewhere over the intervening couple of centuries, a wagster came along with a scientific bent, and he composed a rebuttal, equally heartfelt, and he entitled it "The Old Oaken Bucket, as Censored by the Board of Health." And here's how that goes. "With what anguish of mind I remember my childhood, recalled in the light of instruction since gained, the malarious farm, the wet fungus-grown wildwood, the chills then contracted that since have remained, the scum-covered duck pond, the pigsty close by it, the ditch where the sour-smelling house drainage fell, the damp, shaded dwelling, the foul barnyard nigh it. But worse than all else was that terrible well, and the old oaken bucket, the mold-crusted bucket, the moss-covered bucket that hung in the well. Just think of it, moss on the vessel that lifted the water I drank in the days called to mind, ere I knew what professors and scientists gifted in the waters of wells by analysis find. The rotting wood fiber, the oxide of iron, the algae, the frog of unusual size, the waters as clear as the verses of Byron, are things I remember with tears in my eyes. And the old oaken bucket, the moss-covered bucket, the slime-coated bucket that hung in the well. Oh, had I but realized in time to avoid them the dangers that lurked in that pestilent draught, I'd have tested for organic germs and destroyed them with potassic permanganate ere I had quaffed, or perchance I'd have boiled it and afterward strained it through filters of charcoal and gravel combined, or, after distilling, condensed and regained it in potable form with its filth left behind. Oh, how little I knew of the enteric fever that lurked in the waters I ventured to drink. But since I've become a devoted believer in the teachings of science, I shudder to think. And now, far removed from the scenes I'm describing, this story of warning to others I tell, as memory reverts to my youthful imbibing, and I gag at the thought of that horrible well, and the old oaken bucket, the moss-covered, mold-crusted, slime-coated, crud-clotted, well, to be frank, the slop bucket that hung in the well. Forgive me.